Agni ICBM versus China's hypersonic missile. Agni 5 versus China's hypersonic missile. A look at the importance of Agni 5, the global concerns about China's hypersonic missile, and the difference between ICBM and the new hypersonic technology. Agni 5 ballistic missile with 5000 km range successfully tested in India. Though inducted over 3 years ago, India's foremost Agni 5 ballistic missile was tested for the first time by the user agency, the Strategic Forces Command, on Wednesday evening. The nuclear capable missile in India contender for the intercontinental ballistic missile with a range of 5000 km. The latest test comes at a time when the relations between India and China are at nadir, and after reports that China had tested a new hypersonic missile in August. A look at the importance of Agni 5, the global concerns about China's hypersonic missile, and the difference between ICBM and the new hypersonic technology. What is the Agni 5 missile? Agni 5 is India's long range surface to surface ballistic missile, which can hit a target with a precision that is 5000 kilometers away. This range puts almost the entire China within the missile target range. Though officially an ICBM needs a missile to have a range of at least 5500 km, the Agni 5 is India's closest contender for an ICBM, as it can reach countries across other continents including parts of Africa and Europe. Though the government has claimed that it has maximum range of around 5000 kilometers, several reports suggest that it can hit targets as distant as 8000 kilometers. The nuclear capable missile can carry a warhead of around 1500 kg and has a launch weight of 50,000 kg, making it one of the most potent missiles in the country. What is the history of Agni missiles? India began testing the Agni series of missiles in 1989 with the first test for Agni 1, an intermediate range ballistic missile with a range of around 1000 km. At that time, only the US, the erstwhile Soviet Union, China, France, and Israel had IRBM technology. Since the Defense Research and Development Organization labs have continued to work on it, bringing the latest available Agni 5 to its present capability. In addition to the IRBM capable nations, only North Korea and the UK have ICBM technology at the moment. Why is it important for India? The government said in a statement on Wednesday after the test, which was the first to be done independently by the user agency, the Strategic Force Command, which is a joint tri-services command responsible for India's nuclear weapons, that the test success is in line with India's stated policy to have credible minimum deterrence that underpins the commitment to no first use. What makes Agni 5 agile is that it is a canistered missile. It means that the missile can be launched from road and rail platforms, making it easier for it to be deployed and launched at a quicker pace. The canisterization, which is an encapsulated system which is in which the missile is stored and launched from, also gives the missile a longer shelf life, protecting it from harsher climatic conditions. While India is among the handful of nations with ICBM capability, the next generation of the missile Agni 6 under development is expected to have a range of around 8000 km. Regarding hypersonic missile technology tested by China recently, India is among a select few serious contenders working towards it, even though it is behind China and the US and Russia. Chief of Defense Staff General Bipin Rawat has mentioned in September that India is mulling a rocket force for missiles. However, senior defense establishment sources said that it is still an idea that is being considered. What is a hypersonic glide vehicle that China tested? About 10 days ago, the Financial Times reported that China had in August tested a new hypersonic missile which is nuclear capable, which circled the earth before moving towards its target, missing it by 2 dozen miles. While China denied the report, claiming it to be a spacecraft and not a missile, it demonstrated the capability in hypersonic glide vehicle technology, which raises strategic concerns not just for neighbors like India but even its rivals like the US. A hypersonic glide vehicle is launched by a rocket which moves in the Earth's lower orbit at more than 5 times to 25 times the speed of sound. The vehicle is capable of carrying nuclear payloads, which gives the launching country the strategic capacity to attack almost any target across the world. The Financial Times reported that the test by China had caught the US intelligence agencies by surprise. Though many of the targets that a hypersonic missile can hit are already reachable through the ICBMs, China almost successful test has given rise to a lot of anxiety to military powers world over. How is it different from ICBM? Intercontinental ballistic missile, which have a range of over 5,500 km, have existed since World War II. These missiles meant to carry nuclear payloads have the capacity to carry several warheads, while an ICBM follows a parabolic trajectory, which means it goes up and then comes down in a high arc like when you throw up a ball, only much higher, further and faster. A hypersonic glide vehicle orbits the earth at a lower height and is maneuverable. The ability to change track or target mid trajectory along with speed makes them tougher to track and defend against. According to a report in 2017 by RAND Corporation, the global policy think tank specializing in defense, hypersonic missiles can travel approximately 5,000 to 25,000 km per hour, which makes them 6 to over 25 times faster than modern commercial aircraft. They fly at the height of few tons and 100 km. The mix of high altitude, high speed, and the ability to be maneuvered makes them, Rand said, both challenging to the best missile defense now envisioned and until the last minute of flight unpredictable as to their targets. According to the report, hypersonic missiles capability which gives them offensive and defensive advantage. The maneuverability of such missiles can potentially provide them to use in-flight updates to attack different targets than originally planned, and the ability to fly unpredictable trajectories then missiles will hold extremely large areas at risk throughout much of the flights. But according to Joshua Pollack, who adds non-proliferation review, ICBM would remain the preferred choice because they are more efficient. He called the hypersonic glide vehicle exotic. Which countries have hypersonic technology? Apart from China, the US and Russia are working on the technology. While this would be China's first such test for the capability, Pollack stated on Twitter that the US military often flies an unarmed orbit glider, the X-37B space plane. According to RAND Corporation's 2017 report, France and India are the most committed about gaining the capability and both draw to some extent on cooperation with Russia. It noted that Australia, Japan, and European entities are also working towards it. The report stated that hypersonic technology has a dual use character, as it can be used for non military purposes like space launch and spacecraft retrieval. But once a nation acquires hypersonic technology, its intentions can change. The current situation with hypersonic research openly disseminated and widely spread among government, industries, and universities present challenges for non-proliferation. What are the main concerns about China developing such a technology? America's top military officer Jean-Marc Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, stopped just short of comparing it to Russia taking the lead in space technology with the launch of Sputnik satellite in 1957, hinting that China may have left the US behind in hypersonic capability. Bloomberg reported Milley as saying on Wednesday, "What we saw was a very significant event of a test of a hypersonic weapon system, and it is very concerning. I don't know if it's quite a Sputnik movement, but I think it's very close to that. It has all of our attention." According to Bloomberg, Milley continued saying that China is expanding rapidly in space, in cyber, and in the traditional domains of land, sea, and air. China developing hypersonic missile capability would mean that it potentially would have weapons to overwhelm America's aerial defense system. Though China already has ICBM missiles to attack the US, the unpredictability of hypersonic glide vehicles would give them an advantage. Though Pollack mentioned on Twitter that none of the weapons are good for surprise attacks against the US, which has exceptional detection capabilities, and though ICBMs are easier to predict, even hypersonic vehicles will be detected at launch and tracked in flight. A major concern for the US is that all defenses are aimed at protecting any threats from north and west, and it remains vulnerable to a threat coming from the south as the hypersonic missile can potentially fly over Antarctica. But globally, the main concern is that once the technology is successfully established by even one country, it would lead to a larger race for the capability and its eventual proliferation. RAND noted in its report that major powers are also threatened by the proliferation of hypersonic missile and the crisis they can exacerbate. The more the hypersonic missile proliferate into the hands of additional nations, the more parts develop for crisis. It also stated that the strategic considerations for limiting the technology proliferation hypersonic missiles do not necessarily increase the vulnerability of nations that do not have missile defenses. They are already vulnerable to current types of missiles, however, an increasing number of nations are acquiring missile defenses that could be penetrated by hypersonic missile. A hypersonic attack would occur with very little warning time. This factor and the unpredictability of the targets of a hypersonic attack compress the timeline for response by the party being attacked. What kind of long range ballistic capabilities does China have? The Pentagon said in a report last year that for land based conventional ballistic and cruise missile, China may have either achieved parity or may have exceeded the US. It noted that China has over 1250 ground launched ballistic missile and ground launched cruise missile with range between 500 and 5500 kilometers, while the US has one type of conventional GLBM with a range of 70 to 300 kilometers and no GLCM. But when it comes to long range ballistic missile, China has created a People's Liberation Army rocket force which takes care of China's strategic land based nuclear and conventional missile force. The Pentagon said in a report that China is developing new intercontinental ballistic missile that will significantly improve its nuclear capable missile force. And the number of warheads that China land based ICBMs which are capable of threatening the US is expected to grow to roughly 200 in the next 5 years. It is expanding its inventory of the multi role DF 26, a mobile ground launched intermediate range ballistic missile system capable of rapidly swapping conventional and nuclear warheads. China's robust ground based conventional missile forces, the Pentagon report said, complement the growing size and capabilities of its air and sea based precision strike capabilities. According to the report, China's DF 26 has a range of 4,000 km. The F-31 can reach over 11,200 km, while DF-41 can hit targets within a range of 12,000 km. Thank you.